Hey, First Family. Welcome to the first of multiple vision casting videos for the 2020-2021 school year. We didn't get to have Vision Sunday like we normally do in the fall, but we want to do these videos to talk about some of the things that are coming up so that you guys can begin to prepare for those, and we're extremely excited about what God is doing inside of the ministry. But before we get into the content for this video, I want to say thank you for an incredible first year. The love, the support, the encouragement that you have given me, my family, our team. 2020 hasn't gone exactly like we planned, but it's just been overwhelming how encouraging this ministry and the family and the students are over the course of the year. So thank you very much.
Absolutely. And I also want to thank you all personally for welcoming me in as middle school minister during the midst of all of this. You all have made a very warm and encouraging transition, and so I am extremely grateful for that. So Josh, tell us where we're headed.
Yeah, so back in January, we began to cast vision for our discipleship plan. We introduced this idea of the 3 no's. So to be known by God, to know God, and then to make God known. And over the course of the year, God has begun to refine that and to show us areas where we as a ministry can simplify some things so that we can get more intentional with students and just be more relational in our discipleship model along the way. And one of the verses that we've really dived into, invested in over the last several months has been Matthew 4:19. Follow me and I will make you fishers of men. In fact, this past week, we introduced our brand new podcast, Team Time with First Student Ministries.
That's right. Very exciting.
So this past week's episode on September the 13th was on Matthew 4:19. The podcast is available on what areas?
Yeah, so the podcast is streaming on SoundCloud, Spotify, and iTunes. So if you just search First Team Time with First Student Ministries, it should pop up, and all of our episodes are there, and they'll be updated weekly.
It's been cool. KJ, just a quick side note, KJ has been extremely helpful in getting us technologically ready for the podcast. Cameron has been our hype person throughout the entire process, so I've just showed up to be a part of it. But extremely exciting, very cool new piece of the puzzle that we get to introduce into the ministry. But from Matthew 4:19, we get to see Jesus' model. We get to see Jesus live this out with the 12 disciples. He spends 3 years with a variety of men that aged middle-aged men all the way down to John, who was probably a teenager. And so we get to see this discipleship model just lived out in Scripture and through Jesus's lifestyle. And in that, we began a process through some things that we wanted to change. And one of the changes that we're going to introduce this fall is changing small groups to discipleship groups.
Yeah, that sounds cool, Josh. Tell us more about that.
So 2 real big differences between small groups to discipleship groups. The first is the relational component of discipleship groups. We want to simplify and almost shrink our groups. And so discipleship groups, or D groups for short, are going to be 4 to 5 students. We're going to have 2 leaders in each group. But the idea is for them to be relationally very cohesive, tight, a lot of intentionality, a lot of accountability and authenticity. We want students to feel able to just share whatever is going on in their lives, to be able to walk through Scripture together and deal with the situations that life brings up. A lot like what Jesus did with these 12 men. You know, they live life for 3 years together, and we're not gonna think that we're as cool as Jesus and give ourselves 12 people to invest in, but we're going to do 4 or 5, and we're going to truly live lives with these students and encourage them and help them to live out scriptures like honor your mother and father and What does it look like to die to self in every moment? And so to see the relational component of that, the discipleship of that, and then the life application of those groups. The second thing that I'm really excited about with D groups is the unification process for our ministry. It's going to provide a sense of unity for all of our students in the student ministry. And it may not seem that way at first because we're going to divide up into smaller groups of 4 or 5, but we're going to do these groups based off gender and more region specific diagram like ideas. And so we're going to have students who are seniors, juniors, sophomores, and freshmen all in groups together. And what's exciting about that to me is that you're going to have adult leaders pouring into students, but you're also going to have students pouring into students, because you're going to see seniors and juniors pouring into sophomores and freshmen. And even in the middle school world, you'll be able to see leaders pouring into all of the middle school students, but then 8th graders and 7th graders being able to pour into 6th graders. They're brand new to the student ministry. They're trying to figure out middle school and life. And these students are just able to come alongside and walk with them, which is going to be extremely exciting. So those are the two things. I'm excited about the relational component, the authenticity of these groups, but also how it's going to unify students with each other.
Yeah, absolutely. Josh, what are the other main logistics of D groups that you want families to know about?
Yeah, so a couple of things. I mentioned that these groups are going to be gender specific. We're going to just do that for it's just smart. We're going to continue to make sure that girls are matched with each other and guys with each other. And so the second thing is that we're going to do more region specific groups. And so we're going to have groups that are groups of students in Lexington, West Columbia, out in Chapin, Blythewood, Forest Acres, Brooklyn Casey area. So we're going to have groups from all over that are kind of specific to their region of Columbia, and we want these to be more accessible to those areas. Sometimes it's hard for groups to get all the way down into downtown Columbia whenever we do small groups, so making them more region specific will allow for more accountability and encouragement throughout the week, like in their area. They'll be able to see these students more easily along the way. Another thing that is important is that we're going to do sign-ups for D groups this year, and that's different than what we've done in the past, but the reason for that is that we want to see who's going to actively participate. We're going to place students in these groups ourselves, so the student ministry team will sit down once we get sign-ups, and we'll place people based on location, based on grades and different things like that, so that we can have a good cohesive mix of students and leaders and what that's going to look like. But excited about that because we're also going to be able to see who's engaged, who's not, so that we can then go get those students and be able to engage the students who aren't as excited about D groups and show them what they're going to be about. Another big thing is kind of the when and where our D groups going to happen. With everything that's going on right now in this semester, having a specific night on campus at First Baptist just isn't really a reality for all of our groups. So these groups are going to start off online. And what we're going to do is ask our D group leaders to be able to reach out to students. They'll coordinate what time and what day works best for the group as a whole. And then they'll continue to meet. Our hope is that they meet every week. There'll be encouraging texts and communication throughout the week, but I really want to see these groups meeting on a weekly basis, building that relational component, pouring into each other, challenging each other in scripture, and so that weekly component is important. I understand online, we're online for this and online for that, and let's be honest, it doesn't thrill our souls anymore. It's not exciting anymore, but what I keep coming back to, I keep thinking through as I think through being online for these D groups, is that the format that we use for D groups should not affect the engagement we have for D groups.
Yeah.
Like if we're willing to be all in, fully engaged with what God is going to do through D groups, then He's going to teach us. You know, and it may be through a computer screen for a few weeks or a few months, but God is going to use that if we are willing to be fully engaged with what God is going to do. And so those are kind of the big things. We're hopeful that later in the semester we'll be able to do in-person D groups, but for right now we're going to start off online, and then we'll adjust or pivot or change or stay in D groups depending on what 2020 decides to do.
Absolutely.
Between now and Christmas.
Yeah. And with Josh mentioning the signups, how we're doing the signups for D groups, we are moving towards streamlining everything. So we want to make sure that signing up for D groups is as easy and accessible as possible. And so on our Instagram page, we're actually going to have a link right up there in the bio, and it's going to be a one-stop shop for all things First Student Ministry. And so it's going to have the links to sign up for high school and middle school D groups, as well as a lot of other very helpful information. You'll be able to sign up for our e-letter. If you're not signed up for that, there'll be links to our podcast and our other social media accounts. And so that will be your one-stop shop for that. And we're also going to be sending out the signups via email. So just be on the lookout. And if you have any questions, feel free to email us, to reach out to any one of us, and we'll be happy to get you the information we need. Like we said, we want students engaged in D groups. We don't want any student who's desiring to be engaged and to be a part of D groups to be left out. And so we're absolutely want to make sure that is as easy and accessible as possible.
Right on. Thank you so much.